At first glance, the family seems to be enjoying a pleasant lunch, but seconds later, everything spirals out of control.
Combien de fois faut-il dire? On ne pose pas ses coudes sur la table.
Faced with such an awkward scene, the boy's mother offers no reaction and can only change the subject. His stepfather keeps laughing and chatting, as if the violence moments earlier meant nothing at all, but it plants a seed of hatred deep inside Erik. And that night, just as everyone is getting ready for bed, his vile stepfather tries to go into another room and punish his stepson over what happened during the day, only for his wife to stop him.
Où est-ce que tu vas?
Il est l'heure que j'aille parler à Erik, puisque la soirée semble déjà terminée.
Peut-être qu'on pourrait aller dans notre chambre.
Desperate to protect her son, his mother tries another way to hold her husband back. In the other room, Erik deliberately puts on his headphones so he will not hear his parents and can fall asleep in peace. But only a few minutes later, once his stepfather is finished, he still refuses to let the matter go. By now, his mother is powerless and can only watch helplessly as her husband storms into her son's room. The faint noise wakes the boy, the moment his stepfather pulls off his belt. Erik knows exactly what is coming. Perhaps this has already happened more times than he can count. There is no point begging for mercy, so he simply does as he is told and endures the cruel punishment. His mother curls up in the other room, able to do nothing but suffer in silence. And after the beating is over, stepfather and stepson make peace once again, just as they always do. The next day, still carrying all that anger, Erik sees someone being bullied on his way to school and immediately launches himself at the attacker, even as the bully begs him to stop. Erik seems to lose control, driving fist after fist into him as if releasing all the rage trapped inside. Because of this incident, Erik is expelled from school. Fortunately, after asking his mother, he learns that his stepfather still knows nothing about it. To help Erik finish his education, his mother applies to a new school on his behalf. She wants her son to make a fresh start, not become a troubled young man shaped by abuse at home. But will things really go the way she hopes? Erik does not return home and heads straight to the boarding school. Not long after boarding the train, he notices a beautiful young woman sitting a short distance ahead. The boy casually smooths back his hair, hoping his good looks will catch her attention. The move works, and the girl gives him a shy smile. Unfortunately, the train reaches the station at that exact moment. Erik assumes their brief encounter is over, only for the girl to speak to him as she gets off.
Vous allez à l'internat? Bonne chance dans ce cas.
Watching her walk away, Erik is lost in thought. Little does he know that fate has already tied their lives together. Afterward, the boy takes a taxi and soon arrives at the boarding school. The dean tells him bluntly that the school normally does not accept students midway through the term, especially one with a history of violence. But Erik's mother persuaded the board, so the school has agreed to give him a chance. The condition is that none of the teachers will be responsible for disciplining him, leaving that job entirely to the student council. Whether Erik can last until graduation will depend on his own luck. What secret is this place hiding? And why does the dean seem so worried? The answer will soon be revealed. At exactly 6 in the evening, both the faculty and the students in the main hall must pray before they are allowed to eat. This appears to be a school built around religious tradition. Erik then finds a seat and sits down, before he can even adjust to his new surroundings. A girl comes over to serve the meal. Only then does Erik realize that the girl he met on the train works here as a maid. The discovery leaves him more than a little excited, but the pleasant mood is quickly shattered. A student nearby accidentally knocks over a glass of water, irritating the student council president seated beside him. The president decides to punish him in front of the entire school. Erik immediately looks toward the teachers dining inside, but even the dean turns a blind eye. Not one person steps in to stop the council president's cruelty, and no one dares to, because he is far too powerful to challenge. It gives Erik a terrible feeling about what lies ahead. That night, an anxious Erik calls home. Luckily, his mother answers, afraid her vicious husband may grow suspicious. She hangs up as soon as she hears that her son is safe. What she does not know is that her son's nightmare has only just begun. When Erik returns to his room, he discovers that it is a dorm shared by 2 students. His roommate is Pierre, a gentle and well-mannered boy. The two get along warmly after introducing themselves, and Pierre even sews a school badge onto Erik's uniform. Sometimes, A good roommate really can make a place feel like home, but while they are talking, a group of boys barges in without knocking, claiming to represent the student council. They search the room for anything that violates school rules. They rummage through all of Erik's belongings, blatantly invading his privacy. They are clearly fascinated by the new arrival, and soon pull a cigarette from beneath his bed. Erik explains that it cannot be his because he has only just arrived and has not even had time to put his luggage on the bed, but they refuse to believe him.
Nous avons retrouvé son propriétaire.
C'est la mienne.
Ferme-la, Tanguy, tu ne fumes même pas.
Parfois ça m'arrive, j'ai fait une erreur, c'est stupide, mais c'est la mienne.
Non, ce n'est pas la sienne.
Si ça l'est.
Non.
Tu ne devrais pas être aussi effronté. Méfie-toi, Ponty. Le conseil te convoquera dès demain.
Their arrogance is unbelievable, yet Erik promised his mother he would start over. So for now, he has no choice but to swallow the humiliation. In class the next day, Erik once again sees the council president tormenting the same student from yesterday. He suddenly realizes that graduating from this place will be anything but easy. To make matters worse, during lunch, a student notices an attractive maid nearby and begins behaving inappropriately toward her. The woman does not resist because every student at this school comes from a powerful family, but another maid witnesses the scene from behind. This girl has a strong sense of justice, so she pretends to be carrying a tray of soup, deliberately spills it on the student, then makes a show of hurriedly wiping him clean. The other students burst into laughter. Even though the boy is furious, he does not want to become a joke, so he can only order the maid away. It may look as though she has stood up for her coworker, but she has also angered the supervisor in charge of the maids. Yet neither the dining supervisor nor even the school dean has the authority to intervene. Every dispute is handled internally by the students, but someone has broken their code. A student council member learns that the parents of a bullied student reported the abuse to the headmaster. The headmaster then passed the matter to the student council. As punishment, an older student named Otto throws a leather glove at the bullied boy's feet. Their method of punishment appears fair on the surface. The two sides must fight on a concrete patch in the schoolyard. Whoever loses must crawl away like a rat and beg the winner for forgiveness. Watching from below, Erik cannot understand how such blatant bullying could be cheered on by the other students. Perhaps it reminds him too much of what he has endured himself. Unable to watch the cruelty any longer, he turns and leaves. Those vicious faces and smug expressions bring Erik's anger dangerously close to boiling over, but for the sake of his education and the promise he made his mother, he has to stay calm. After class the next day, Erik goes to the swimming pool. Swimming is his favorite sport, and he won many honors for his previous school. But just then, the same student council members arrive. They declare that new students are forbidden from setting foot inside the pool. The school has no such written rule, leaving Erik completely baffled. Even so, his questions only anger them. Erik may have endured abuse from his stepfather, but he has never had to tolerate this kind of humiliation at school. Still determined to avoid trouble, he reluctantly leaves. What he does not realize is that Otto now holds a grudge against him. In the showers, Otto and the others decide that it is time to teach this disobedient newcomer a lesson. Meanwhile, Erik heads to the library and happens to run into the maid he met earlier. The two have crossed paths once before, and because the girl showed such courage and integrity, Erik has already begun to like her. As they both reach for a book, their hands accidentally touch, sending both their hearts racing. Erik learns that her family is poor, so she cannot afford school and has to work while educating herself. Her dream is to become a veterinarian one day, but her allotted time soon runs out, and the librarian quickly takes the book away. This is her daily routine. She takes notes during the little time she has, then studies them whenever she gets another free moment. After learning this, Erik uses his student privileges to borrow the thick veterinary textbook for her. At the same time, he notices a notice on the board announcing a dance that evening. It seems like the perfect opportunity for a date, but then a classmate unexpectedly delivers a message. Otto is waiting for Erik on the school field to discuss something important. Erik knows perfectly well that this so-called important matter is nothing more than revenge, so he changes into casual clothes and goes to wait on the field. There, he happens to meet the physical education teacher walking his dog. Since Erik also had a beloved dog back home, the two quickly find common ground. The teacher has also heard about Erik's talent for swimming and wants him to join the school team. However, someone has declared that freshmen are not allowed to compete, and that person is now walking straight toward them. The teacher seems to understand what is happening and chooses not to stay. Even so, he asks Erik to think about joining the team. Otto then hands Erik a shovel and leads him to an empty stretch of ground. He says a small cellar is going to be built there. Otto never explains what it will be used for and simply orders Erik to dig it, to keep the student council boys from harassing him further. Erik agrees. Meanwhile, the dining hall maids are all preparing for the evening dance. Meeting the son of a wealthy family might just change one of their lives. Marja is the only one who has no interest in attending, but when she enters her room, she finds a package waiting on the balcony. To her delight, it contains the book she wanted. Before she can process the surprise, a co-worker arrives and explains that Erik asked someone to deliver it, along with a note inviting her to dance. Although Marja is 3 years older than him, the invitation still sends a thrill through her, so she joins the other girls in front of the mirror, dressing up for the romantic evening ahead. But the boy she likes is already trapped in a nightmare of his own. After exhausting himself, Erik finally finishes digging a 6-foot-deep hole. Overcome with fatigue, he falls asleep nearby, and the painful past begins replaying in his dreams. He was once a star swimmer on his school team. He frequently broke records and was his coach's favorite athlete. But at home, he had a stepfather with a violent temper. Simply arriving a few minutes late to pick Erik up was enough for the boy to pay a terrible price.
15 minutes de retard. Nous en reparlerons ce soir.
What his stepfather called discussing the problem was really just another punishment. Drops of blood would splash across the wall covered with Erik's medals. Once again, his stepfather viciously whipped him with a belt. In the living room, his mother could only play the piano to cover the sound of the blows. When the punishment ended, his stepfather acted as though nothing had happened and made a few emotionless remarks. By then, Erik's back was covered in deep wounds. This was his broken home, filled with suffering no child should ever have to endure. What he never expected was to find himself trapped in another living hell. After inspecting the pit, the student council members immediately make another demand. They order Erik to fill the entire hole back in so no one will fall into it that night. Looking into Otto's cruel eyes, Erik desperately wants to knock him into the pit with the shovel, but he cannot do that now, or he will destroy his own future, so he suppresses his rage and continues paying the price for their sadistic game. At the dance, Marja waits in vain for the boy she likes. Not knowing what happened, she assumes he stood her up, refuses every invitation to dance, and leaves heartbroken. Erik is just as miserable. It is not until midnight that he finally finishes filling the pit. If he cannot confront these boys head-on, perhaps there is another way to escape their control. So at lunch the next day, when the student council president checks in on the new student, Erik speaks without hesitation. He says he spent the weekend doing what amounted to forced labor. Then he tells the president everything Otto and his friends did. Erik knows the president is part of the same clique. He is deliberately making the issue impossible to ignore, and in the process, he infuriates Otto. A brutal showdown is now inevitable. Otto uses his own twisted method to humiliate the newcomer. At first, he strikes Erik on the head with a metal spoon, but then suddenly changes his mind. He picks up a sharp bottle cap and uses an even crueler method to display the unchecked power he wields at school. Otto expects to intimidate him, but he badly underestimates Erik's resilience. For a moment, Otto does not know what to do. Everyone else begs him for mercy, so why does this boy remain completely unfazed? Otto suddenly realizes he is losing face. Soon, blood is streaming from Erik's head, and the maid who comes to check on him is deeply worried. Fortunately, a sports coach hears what happened and rushes over. After seeing Erik's injury, the coach personally takes him to the infirmary. Knowing that Otto and his friends are notorious troublemakers, the coach advises Erik to keep quiet and stay out of their way. Erik has no desire to explain himself, but the scars across his back reveal more pain and struggle than words ever could. Once his wound is treated, Erik sits alone near the field. The incident may have brought him trouble, but it also leads to an unexpected romance. Marja, the dining hall maid, feels deeply for what Erik has suffered, believing he is a strong young man who can control himself without turning to violence. She openly confesses her feelings. Erik feels just as strongly about Marja. From then on, the two begin meeting frequently in the woods. In that quiet darkness, it is almost impossible for them not to fall deeply for each other. But more trouble is already on the way. Otto may have appeared to win when he humiliated Erik in the dining hall, but in truth, he was the one who lost. To restore his pride, he decides to invoke the school's so-called code. Meanwhile, Erik returns from his date glowing with happiness, but many students in the dormitory hallway give him strange looks, and the air seems thick with tension. His suspicions are confirmed when he finds a pair of gloves on his bed. signifying Otto's challenge. The school's code is merciless. Anyone with a grievance can settle it on the concrete. A huge crowd gathers to watch, with most of the students firmly on Otto's side, determined to keep his promises to his mother and the woman he loves. Erik absorbs punch after punch from Otto, unable to unleash the violence buried inside him and fight back. But memories of his miserable past begin flooding his mind once again. One day, because his stepfather had to work late at the factory, Erik's mother asked him to deliver something. He went to the factory where his stepfather worked. The man's vanity was enormous. Although he was only an ordinary worker, he dressed and carried himself like a supervisor. When his stepson arrived, he boasted even more loudly in front of his co-workers. He even took a company drink to give Erik something to quench his thirst. But bad luck struck when they accidentally knocked over a worker's tools, attracting the attention of the real supervisor. The factory boss immediately exposed his stepfather's act, humiliating him in front of everyone. But the man blamed the entire incident on his stepson. As Erik prepared to leave, he saw his stepfather being harshly reprimanded through a window, and suddenly understood what this would mean. Sure enough, when he returned home that night, his mother looked deeply troubled, a clear sign that something terrible was coming. His stepfather was waiting in Erik's room, furious over what happened that day. He believed Erik's arrival was the reason he had been humiliated in front of his boss, so he placed all the blame on his stepson and unleashed every emotion he could not control.
Ne t'avise plus jamais, au grand jamais, de venir sur mon lieu de travail.
Tout est ma faute, je suis désolé.
2 slaps were nowhere near enough to satisfy his rage. Instead, he picked up something he had already prepared and attacked Erik even more viciously. Through one episode of abuse after another, Erik endured endless pain at his stepfather's hands. His equally devastated mother was powerless to change anything. It seemed that only Erik's beloved dog could offer him any comfort, but this was only the beginning of the turn his fate would take. At his former school, Erik met several boys from the streets and formed a small local gang. Together, they planned to rob a record store and steal several valuable albums. The accomplice who committed the crime with Erik was later arrested for another theft. He also told the police everything Erik had done. Although Erik was not taken away by the police, he was summoned by the dean. With the stolen records laid out before him, Erik had nothing to say. In truth, Erik was an excellent student who had already won several swimming championships for the school. Both his coach and the dean wanted him to find a better path. So in the end, the school gave Erik one more chance. Unfortunately, his stepfather still learned about the theft and the gang. He believed Erik had brought shame upon the entire family. He decided to deliver an even harsher punishment, one his stepson would never forget. The boy then removed his shirt. His mother happened to be away, which meant this punishment would be worse than ever. But when his stepfather ordered him to choose between a shoehorn and a belt, Erik finally reached his limit and talked back.
J'en ai rien à foutre. T'as qu'à choisir. J'ai compris que c'est toi la honte de cette famille. Toi et toi seul. Alors vas-y, frappe-moi.
Erik thought those words might make his stepfather turn around and abandon the punishment, but reality was nothing like he imagined. His stepfather brought out Erik's beloved dog. Confused, the boy stepped forward and demanded an explanation, but his stepfather refused to say a word. As he left, he also took a hunting rifle. Erik sensed that something was terribly wrong. He quickly got dressed and followed. His stepfather went to a deserted park, intending to kill Erik's dearest companion just to vent his anger. This time, the boy truly surrendered. He begged his stepfather again and again to hurt him instead and spare the dog. What happened to his beloved pet became the final blow that shattered Erik. He broke down in tears, holding his dog's lifeless body. He spent the entire night alone in the park, overwhelmed by unbearable grief and uncontrollable fury. Erik completely lost himself. When he saw the accomplice who betrayed him outside the school gates, a murderous rage surged through him. He blamed the boy's betrayal for everything that had happened. Ignoring every explanation, Erik drove his fist into the boy's face. The beating continued for a long time before bystanders finally pulled Erik away. Now, as those memories return, Erik refuses to endure Otto's bullying any longer. Otto has only one goal: to force Erik to admit defeat.
Tu es à moi. Tu comprends ça? Tu es à moi. Tu le respecteras et tu ne feras plus jamais honte à aucun de ses membres.
The crowd falls completely silent because no one dares challenge a member of the student council. Seeing Erik apparently submit, Otto even offers him a hand.
Sans rancune.
That phrase pushes Erik past his breaking point. His stepfather used to say the exact same thing after every beating. Erik appears to let Otto help him up, but inside, his anger has reached its limit. Every humiliation he has suffered here, every insult from classmates who called him a rat, is about to explode all at once. He tells Otto to leave the fighting ground immediately or accept what Erik will have no choice but to do next. Otto is stunned. No one at this boarding school has ever dared speak to him that way. And with that, Erik is left with no other choice.
Vas-y, Otto, frappe-le! Allez-y, allez! Allez, relève-toi, Otto!
Otto, relève-toi.
Faut qu'on arrête le combat!
Contre la tradition.
Quoi alors?
In the middle of the fight, Erik notices his girlfriend arriving, but she quickly walks away. He promised Marja he would never use violence to solve his problems, yet reality has cornered him. Afterward, Otto's friends carry him to the infirmary. When the school's only female doctor examines him, Otto's once handsome face has been beaten beyond recognition. His injuries are clearly beyond anything the infirmary can treat. The school quickly calls a taxi to take him to a nearby hospital. By comparison, Erik is in decent condition, with only a cut near his eye. But word of the incident soon reaches the school administration. Some teachers argue that Erik already had a violent record and that admitting him was a mistake from the start. Their criticism is clearly aimed at the headmaster. After all, he was the one who allowed Erik to stay. Others, however, disagree. Erik has extraordinary talent as a swimmer. He can bring honor to the school, and no one can deny that. Besides, challenges on the concrete are a long-standing school tradition, so whether Erik will be expelled remains under debate. Meanwhile, Erik prepares for the worst and packs his belongings. Then his roommate walks in. Pierre cannot understand why Erik is rushing. Fighting on the concrete is technically allowed under school rules. He tells Erik not to jump to conclusions. If the school does punish anyone, the despicable Otto must also share the blame. But will things really be that fair? Erik then goes to the public telephone, intending to tell his mother everything he has endured, but to his surprise, his stepfather answers. The boy stays silent for a moment, yet that silence is enough to make his stepfather suspicious. Just as Erik hangs up, a group of Otto's friends comes looking for him. Fortunately, the student council president arrives in time and defuses the crisis. Though given Erik's fighting ability, even all those bullies together might not stand a chance if he truly stopped holding back. Once things settle down, it is time for Erik to make peace with his girlfriend. He sincerely apologizes to Marja, but she seems unwilling to understand.
Excuse-moi, je sais que j'étais beaucoup déçu.
Qui est capable d'autant de violence?
Je n'avais pas le choix.
Bien sûr que si. Tu l'avais.
After watching her boyfriend be humiliated, does she really expect him to stand there and let himself be beaten? Endless restraint only makes a person look weaker and invites even worse abuse. Soon, the next morning arrives. By early the next morning, the headmaster is waiting at the entrance to welcome an important visitor. The man is Otto's father, a member of the school's board. He has come to hear exactly how the headmaster intends to handle the incident. The headmaster is unsure how to respond. First, the school has decided to expel Erik, but Otto also bears responsibility for the violence, so he cannot avoid punishment either. Regardless of family background, the headmaster still seems determined to treat them equally. Yet when Otto's father hears the decision, he does not lose his temper and instead claims that no violent incident ever occurred. He says he will speak with the board and make sure the matter is not investigated further. The headmaster is confused. Perhaps the man fears for his son's future, because given the family's influence, there is no other convincing explanation. And just like that, Erik is unexpectedly spared. The headmaster tells him that Otto claimed his injuries came from falling off a horse and had nothing to do with Erik. Even so, the headmaster will not tolerate another incident like this. At last, a faint smile returns to Erik's face. What he does not know is that Otto made this decision only to carry out a more calculated revenge. Erik calls home again, hoping to tell his mother what has happened, but to his surprise, she sounds far from all right. She even tells her son not to call home for a while. His mother does not explain why, but the bruises on her face reveal that her husband has attacked her again. Life appears to return to normal, while the real danger quietly draws closer. By lunchtime, Erik has become a hero to some of the weaker students. They even begin openly cheering him on.
Arrêtez ça! Arrêtez, je dis!
Silence! Arrêtez immédiatement! Je vous préviens, vous allez vite le payer cher!
but the mood changes in an instant. The monster whose eye was nearly destroyed has returned. The entire hall falls silent. At the appointed hour, the students begin their prayers as usual, but once the prayer ends, something completely unexpected happens. Otto first announces a decision from the board. The current student council president is removed, and Otto will personally take over. This is clearly terrible news for Erik, because Otto will undoubtedly seek revenge. But Otto does not target Erik right away and goes after his two friends first. He calls forward a frail boy and dredges up an old offense. Otto also accuses Erik's roommate Pierre of once hiding a cigarette beneath his bed. In plain terms, Otto is flexing his new authority, and his first victims are Erik's friends. He calls Pierre forward and orders the frail boy to strike Pierre's head with a sharp bottle cap as punishment for hiding the cigarette. Blood immediately pours from Pierre's wound, and several students carry him to the infirmary. The students who once stood up against the bullies quickly fall quiet again. The balance of power has clearly reversed, but Otto is doing all of this mainly to punish Erik. At the same time, Erik's mother continues enduring abuse every day. One wrong word is enough for her husband to attack her, and Erik and his roommate are about to face even more vicious treatment. Otto and his followers storm into the boys' dormitory under the authority of the student council. Without a word, they begin destroying the room, making it obvious that they have come to terrorize the two boys. Even worse, they urinate all over the bedding. Despite such vile behavior, Erik and Pierre are forced to contain their fury. Otto and his fellow council members also punish Pierre for no reason at all. Every part of this is another attempt by Otto to get revenge on Erik. Anyone who is close to Erik becomes a target. Otto even orders Pierre to sabotage Erik during the upcoming sports meet.
Je suis venu pour te parler de ton ami.
Erik Ponty n'est pas mon ami.
Il a rien à faire à la piscine. S'il est sur le plot de départ au coup de sifflet, t'es un homme mort.
Pierre pretends to agree, but he would never betray his friend. Sure enough, Erik still appears on the track. Otto instantly realizes that Pierre did nothing and clenches his jaw in rage. But during the relay, Erik and his teammate make a mistake and accidentally drop the baton. Most people would simply give up at that point, but some people are born with exceptional athletic talent. Erik surges forward at full speed, racing toward the finish line as the crowd erupts in cheers. Just as he is about to overtake everyone, he seems to ease off near the finish. Despite the major mistake, he still finishes second and earns lavish praise from the coach. But Pierre notices the subtle moment when Erik slowed down. He storms into the locker room and accuses his friend of losing on purpose. Erik insists that he only wants to finish his education and avoid any more conflict with the student council. But will the vicious Otto really leave him alone? Remember, Erik once beat Otto badly that night, and Otto has no intention of letting it go. So Pierre urges Erik to reclaim his confidence and show his true ability in the upcoming swimming competition. Otto had no idea Erik would be competing, so his own name was not on the entry list. But shortly before the race, Otto sees his sworn enemy inside the pool and cannot accept it. With only 1 minute left before the race, Otto, who failed to defeat Erik before, changes into a swimsuit. Even the coach cannot stop him because Otto is the student council president and his father sits on the school board. That means even the coach is afraid to offend this wealthy student. Otto replaces one of the swimmers and prepares to face Erik in the pool. Both boys are burning with determination, and neither is willing to give the other an inch. Even when their eyes meet, neither shows the slightest intention of backing down. At the referee's signal, every competitor dives into the water and begins racing against the clock. Erik is a natural champion who won multiple honors at his former school. If he wants first place, no one here can beat him, and the final result comes as no surprise. Erik not only wins thunderous applause from students and teachers, but also breaks the school record. At the same time, he humiliates Otto in front of everyone. As Otto leaves, he issues a dark warning.
Je crois bien que tu viens de sacrifier ton ami Gauthier.
Erik has no idea what will happen next and casually looks toward Pierre at the side of the pool. Erik then stands on the podium, enjoying his victory and posing for a photograph with the headmaster, finally shaking off his former gloom. But below, Otto and his friends appear to be plotting something before hurrying away. Erik senses that something is wrong, especially when he realizes his friend is also missing. He immediately begins asking everyone where Pierre went, but no matter how many people he asks, no one knows. Erik now realizes that his friend must have suffered something terrible. He rushes to the school infirmary. Pierre is indeed there, his face covered in blood after a brutal beating. The entire attack stems from Otto's hatred of Erik. Otto has left Erik's only friend at this school badly injured, But can Erik really swallow his anger? The infirmary doctor arrives to treat Pierre and asks Erik to leave for now.
Tu as été formidable.
Between the excitement of his victory and everything he has endured lately, Erik desperately wants to talk to his mother, but once again, his stepfather answers the phone.
Erik, je sais que c'est toi. Je ne sais pas où est passée ta mère.
It turns out Erik's mother could no longer bear the abuse and has left home, and now even his stepson is no longer afraid of him. At last, the vicious man is beginning to taste the bitterness of his own actions. When Erik returns to the dormitory, he finds a letter on the bed. Pierre could no longer endure the abuse and quietly withdrew from the school. The news sends Erik into a rage. He believes his own cowardice left his best friend with no other choice. Holding Pierre's letter, he confronts the student council members and demands an answer.
Il n'y avait pas plus studieux de toute cette école. C'était le meilleur élève. Et vous avez tout fait pour qu'il dégage. Qu'est-ce qu'il vous avait fait? Vous n'êtes qu'une sale bande de trouillards.
They can hurt Erik all they want, but he will never tolerate them hurting his friend. He removes his watch and coat, ready to challenge the school's code no matter the consequences, even if this gets him expelled. He does not hesitate, but his enemies do not seem afraid of him. That is because Otto is preparing to ambush him from behind. When Erik regains consciousness, he is lying in an empty field far from the school buildings. His arms and legs are tightly bound, leaving him completely helpless, and Otto's punishment is only beginning. He summons every frail student at the school who lacks a powerful family. Each carrying a bucket of water, they pour hot water over Erik, followed by cold water, tormenting him in a horrifying ritual. Many of these powerless students are actually on good terms with Erik, but under Otto's pressure, not one of them dares resist this ruthless man.
Suivant! Qu'est-ce qu'il t'arrive, mon petit? Verse!
Erik is tortured for an entire hour, struggling desperately as his body nears collapse. The sound of everyone returning to the school building catches Marge's attention. She sees Otto leading the group and immediately fears that her boyfriend has been harmed. Her fears are justified. After questioning several students downstairs, Marge rushes to where Erik was left. By then, he is trembling so violently that he cannot speak. Without immediate warmth, his life could be in danger. Summoning all her strength, Marge drags the barely conscious Erik back inside. But what will happen next? The girl gently touches her unconscious boyfriend. The shocking scars across his back reveal to Marge just how much Erik has suffered. At last, the boy wakes in his girlfriend's arms. Life always seems to find new ways to hurt people. When Marge asks about the scars, Erik tells the guilt-ridden girl everything about the abuse he suffered from his stepfather. According to Erik, his stepfather would attack him for almost any reason. Sitting incorrectly at the dinner table or even cutting his hair too short could become an excuse for another beating. Hearing this, Marge feels deeply ashamed. After all, when she saw Erik fighting at school, she once considered ending their relationship. Now she finally understands what Erik has lived through. She is filled with regret over the way she treated him. In the silence, the two reconcile, and with this rare moment alone, the two young lovers can no longer suppress the emotions between them. But Marge is not nearly as fortunate afterward. Her absence throughout the previous night has already alerted the matron. The school also has a strict rule forbidding maids from having relationships with students, so Marge is fired without mercy. When Marge's best friend learns what happened, she runs after the departing taxi to ask what is going on. Marge took all the blame because she feared the scandal would ruin Erik's education. She asked the matron not to reveal the relationship, leaving her no choice but to give up her job. The two devoted friends say an emotional goodbye, and Marge leaves in the taxi. Perhaps one day they will all understand that life never stops changing simply because someone is gone. For now, let those memories drift away with the wind. Meanwhile, Erik has another pain he cannot let go. After suffering another attack from her husband days earlier, his mother finally fled the family home. With no way to contact her, Erik calls the house again, but an investigator answers, while others can be heard gathering evidence from the scene behind him. After leaving home, Erik's mother has clearly taken her husband to court over the abuse, but the deranged man has gone into hiding. The investigator gives Erik a telephone number that may help him reach his mother, and it does. After leaving home, his mother found somewhere to stay. She now supports herself with part-time work. Having finally seen the truth, she tells the police about every act of violence and abuse her husband committed.
Croisons les doigts pour qu'il ne sait pas. pour te protéger. Pardonne-moi de ne pas l'avoir fait.
T'en fais pas pour moi,
À présent, l'avenir nous sourit.
que j'ai une petite copine.
Even this unexpected relief brings the woman to tears. Perhaps she believes that her own fear and weakness allowed both mother and son to reach this point. But one misfortune follows another. When Erik does not see his girlfriend in the dining hall, he immediately asks Marja's friend to step outside. The truth is painfully cruel. To protect Erik's education, Marja quietly left after the school dismissed her. After hearing the news, Erik curls up on the ground, as though the small ray of hope in his life has vanished in an instant. All he can do now is finish his education and then search for the girl he loves. In the days that follow, his life becomes an unchanging routine. He spends every day either receiving treatment for his burns or studying diligently in class. He cuts himself off from every other student. With his best friend and girlfriend both gone, he no longer has anything left to lose. His hard work finally pays off. His excellent exam results earn the headmaster's praise, but when he returns to the dormitory to rest, he finds a letter lying on his bed. Marja sent it days after leaving, but the envelope appears to have been tampered with. The boy pays no attention and quickly opens it. Across 3 pages, Marja pours out her love and offers Erik her sincerest blessings. She hopes he can make his own choice between good and evil, and that he will successfully complete his education. But several students in the distance suddenly begin laughing. Erik instantly realizes what has happened. Sure enough, the headmaster soon summons him to the office. The decision comes suddenly, and the headmaster makes it with great difficulty. The school has decided to expel Erik for having a romantic relationship with a dining hall employee. At this critical moment, the decision is a devastating blow. Only then does Erik understand that someone must have read the letter first and reported him to the headmaster. No one but Otto could be that heartless. Burning with hatred, Erik goes to the stables to find Otto. He has lost all reason, and every hopeful dream has been shattered. His fury rises like a wave of fire, and he is determined to make Otto pay. He has lost his final source of hope and has nothing left holding him back. But just as Erik prepares to strike, the supposedly untouchable Otto drops to his knees and begs for mercy.
J'ai eu tort, Ponty. Pardon. Pardon.
Even as Otto pleads again and again, Erik ultimately chooses not to hurt him. Perhaps this is the moment Erik finally changes inside. He understands that answering violence with more violence will only turn him into the very person he hates most, his stepfather. He longs to break free from this cycle of evil. After everything he has witnessed, Erik also understands that this school is corrupt beyond saving. He no longer needs to prove anything here. To him, freedom matters more than revenge. That is the central theme of the original novel. Every person can choose not to become part of evil. In that moment, Erik rises above violence and hatred and becomes free to walk away with his head held high. But there may still be one final chance. After learning what happened, Erik's mother comes to collect him and brings a lawyer friend, making it clear that they will not give up. The 3 of them go directly to the headmaster, who is about to retire for the evening. The lawyer brings a copy of the amended criminal code, specifically Article 8, Section 4. It states that anyone who illegally obtains another person's information, including privately reading or intercepting letters and telegrams, may face a fine or up to 2 years in prison. That means the student council members who secretly read Erik's letter could be taken away by the police for questioning. The scandal would also damage the school's reputation and the headmaster's own standing, and the students involved all come from wealthy families. So now the headmaster must make his choice.
Qu'est-ce que vous attendez de moi, Erik?
Life has a strange sense of drama. Under pressure to protect the school's reputation, the headmaster expels Otto, the true culprit. Finally bringing justice full circle, the other participants immediately become obedient, standing rigidly at attention. Then another piece of good news arrives. Pierre, Erik's loyal friend, returns to school after Otto is expelled, giving everyone the ending they hoped for. Meanwhile, Erik takes the train home to help the police gather evidence. Under the flash of the camera, he reveals every scar his stepfather left across his back. The vile man is then arrested by police at his workplace. He wanted to protect his precious dignity so badly. Now that dignity is destroyed in front of all his co-workers. This is the most restrained yet powerful moment in the entire series. There are no screams or sobs, only a complicated mixture of numbness and calm. Justice has finally arrived. But the trauma can never be undone. Erik chooses not to inherit the evil done to him and instead carries his scars into a new life of his own. In the end, Erik successfully completes his education to the applause of his teachers and classmates. And that brings our full recap of the series to an end. The Swedish series Evil is adapted from Jan Guillau's novel and explores violence, power, and personal redemption through cold, austere imagery and restrained storytelling. It follows young Erik as he struggles to survive, resist, and grow while trapped between abuse at home and violence at school. The director never forces the emotion. Instead, through Erik's numb yet furious gaze, the audience gradually feels how that era tolerated violence and how ruthlessly its power structures operated. At home, his stepfather is the absolute abuser, his mother is weak and avoidant. The school, meanwhile, is a miniature prison of power, with a rigid hierarchy among students and informants and abuse everywhere. For a time, Erik becomes trapped in a cycle of answering violence with violence, but through repeated struggle and pain, he slowly realizes that responding to the world with his fists will only turn him into the person he hates most. In the end, Erik chooses restraint, refusing to take revenge on Otto or submit to violence, and calmly watches as the police take his abusive stepfather away. The scene captures both the sorrow of justice arriving too late and the reality that trauma cannot simply be repaired, all with remarkable restraint and power. What makes Evil truly moving is not its bloodshed or conflict, but its profound reflection on how evil passes from one generation to the next and where humanity must draw the line. It reminds us that justice may arrive late, but every person can still choose not to become part of evil. That resilience in the face of sorrow is the story's most powerful quality.